Okay, the book of Numbers. Let's be real for a second. Does any book in the Bible sound more boring? It just screams ancient census report, right? You imagine endless lists of names, statistics. It feels like the part of the story you're supposed to skip to get to the good stuff. But what if that's completely, totally wrong?
Well, check this out. The whole mystery, the key to unlocking this incredible story, is hiding right here, in plain sight. See, the book has two radically different names. Our English title, Numbers, it comes from the Greek and it frames the whole thing as a book of data. But the original Hebrew title, Bamidbar, tells a completely different story. It hints that maybe the numbers aren't the point at all.
So, to really get what this book is about, the first thing we have to do is get past the name we all know and let's face it, the pretty boring reputation that comes along with it. And look, it's totally fair that we feel this way. The title Numbers sets an expectation, doesn't it? We brace ourselves for a long, dry, data-heavy text. It feels like a historical document you might appreciate from a distance, but you definitely wouldn't expect it to be thrilling or, relevant to your own life.
This is the question that just flips everything on its head. What if the name we use isn't just a simple translation, but a total misdirection? What if it's been pointing us to the least important part of the story this whole time, causing us to miss the real drama? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. When we look at that original Hebrew title, everything changes. It doesn't describe the book's contents. It describes its setting. And that one little shift in perspective is absolutely profound. Bamidbar. It means in the wilderness, or even more poetically, in the blank space. Wow. All of a sudden, this isn't a book about accounting. It's a story about a journey through a vast, unstructured, and deeply challenging place. The focus snaps from counting people to the experience those people are having.
And here's the kicker. This is where the name comes from. It's literally the opening line of the entire book. The very first words aren't about a number or a person's name. They're about a location. The story starts by telling us where we are, because where they are is the whole point. So this is the crucial point we have to get. The wilderness isn't just a backdrop for the action, like a set in a play. The wilderness is the action. It's the place of testing, of getting lost, of confronting who you really are when all the external structures you've ever known have been stripped away. So what happens when you take a nation of people and drop them into this blank space right after they've escaped generations of slavery? Well, it created a crisis that they never, ever saw coming. I mean, think about this for a second. Escaping Egypt was a miracle, sure, but it was a single event. The real challenge came the morning after. In slavery, their lives were brutal, but they were simple. Now, suddenly they're in freedom, and it's a terrifying, unstructured reality. They have to choose. They have to trust. They have to be responsible for themselves, maybe for the first time ever. And this chart just lays it out so clearly. In Egypt, you had a rigid, oppressive structure, but your food was guaranteed, even if it was slave food. You had zero choices to make, and all the responsibility belonged to your master. But in the wilderness, whoa, it's pure chaos. No external structure, food requires daily trust, and the sheer number of choices is overwhelming. And the weight of all that responsibility, it's suddenly right on your own shoulders. And this is the absolutely shocking result. They complain. They rebel. They literally say they want to choose a new leader and go back. Now, they weren't longing for the whips and chains. No, they were longing for a life without the crushing weight of personal responsibility. They actually wanted the certainty of slavery over the terrifying uncertainty of freedom. This intense struggle, this desire to go backwards, it reveals the true purpose of those infamous 40 years they spent wandering in the desert. It was so much more than just a punishment. 40 years. That number has become synonymous with a long, harsh punishment, right? A whole generation condemned to wander until they died out. But again, what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if those 40 years were less of a prison sentence and more of a curriculum? A long, difficult, but absolutely necessary process. Think of it as a 40-year classroom for learning the one thing they had no idea how to do, how to actually be free. See, you can't take people out of generations of slavery and just expect them to be free overnight. It doesn't work like that. Getting them physically out of Egypt was just step one. The real work,
That 40-year curriculum was about getting the slavery mentality out of them. It was about unlearning dependency, facing the chaos of choice, and finally, learning to trust a new guide without the crack of a master's whip.
And this is where this ancient story in the wilderness suddenly stops being ancient and becomes a startlingly modern mirror for our own lives, for those blank spaces that every single one of us has to navigate. I mean, think about leaving a stable 9-to-5 job, with a clear boss and a predictable paycheck, to start your own business. The second you do that, you are in the wilderness. There are no rules, no one telling you what to do. The terror and the thrill of that blank slate, that is the modern Bamidbar. It's the exact same crisis of freedom the Israelites faced. And here's the ultimate lesson from the book we call Numbers. Freedom isn't actually the absence of structure. It's the development of internal direction. Without a compass, without a why, freedom simply becomes another way to get hopelessly lost. They had to learn to be led from within, by their faith, not by an external master. So in the end, this book that seems to be about ancient statistics is actually asking one of the most profound human questions imaginable. And it's a question for every single one of us. When you find yourself standing in your own wilderness, your own blank space, what do you truly want? The terrifying, difficult responsibility of true freedom, or the predictable, comfortable safety of the slavery you already know?